really what I want is to get our patients from wherever their baseline is to optimal. And like you said, even get it
Mhm.
to longevity. And then our job is just maintenance, right? Like it's not a
Mhm.
whole lot of work. It's just let's check in once a year, make sure we're in the right place. You know, if anything changes, obviously we're there, but that's the easiest patient
Yeah.
is to, once we get them into maintenance and then they're just on cruise control and it's really easy.
Hello, it's Dr. Jen. Welcome back to the Integrative Health Podcast with Dr. Jen. Today, I'm so excited to have an expert in women's health, Dr. Aimee Duffy. She's a board certified physician and founder of Carolina Integrative Medicine, specializing in functional and integrative healthcare for women. With over 20 years of medical experience, Dr. Duffy is dedicated to empowering women to reclaim their vitality and wellness by addressing the root causes of complex health challenges. She's a best-selling author of Normal Doesn't Have Side Effects, and she combines her extensive knowledge of conventional medicine with holistic treatments to create personalized care. And I'm a big fan of that, as you guys know. So she's known for her compassionate approach and providing a safe space for women to be heard on their health journeys. She's been a leading voice in women's wellness, speaking frequently at conferences, and is known for her dedication to help women thrive in every stage of life. And her mission is to help women feel empowered, balanced, and in control of their health. And we have met at conferences, and she is the sweetest. So we're excited to have her here today. Welcome, Dr. Duffy.
Thank you. I am excited.
Yes, yes. Well, so we have kind of a lot in common coming from conventional medicine to integrative functional medicine and share your story because we all have a reason why we did this.
How did we end up here?
Yeah.
Mine is a little bit different. I think a lot of practitioners in this space, not everyone, but I feel like a lot of them have experienced their own, sort of health journey that has led them to find something different. But for me, I feel very fortunate that mine started quite early in my career in medicine. So it goes way, way back. When I was little, I just absolutely loved babies. I just had to hold all the babies and I had Cabbage Patch Kids and all their accessories. And I was just obsessed with babies. So
Oh.
when I was a teenager, my job was a babysitter. And the family that I babysat for invited me to be in the delivery room when I was a senior in high school to share the experience of their delivery. So that was really my first medical experience doing anything like that. And, after I thought for a while I might be either a teacher or a pediatrician. And so, what I really realized that I liked is the OB part. I wanted to deliver babies. So I went to college, I went to med school. That was my drive. And then when I was in medical school and you do all your rotations, the OB department, at least where I went to school, they weren't very nice and they didn't seem very happy. So I was kind of like, I don't really know if this is what I want to do. I was sort of, caught between a rock and a hard place of, is this really what I want? And then I got to do my family practice rotation where I realized they also delivered babies, but they were just, their lifestyle was a lot different. It wasn't just hardcore kind of surgery. And so I felt really drawn to that because I wanted to deliver babies, but I like the idea that I could then be the pediatrician and take care of babies, and chose to do a residency in a rural state in South Carolina, rural city, so that I could really have the best of both worlds, which is what they needed. So that's what I did. I delivered babies in residency, and throughout that process, I delivered over 1,000 babies, got C-section privileges. And about a year after I completed my residency, I got asked to be part of an OBGYN office that was local here in small town Seneca, South Carolina, and they needed a practitioner to join them. And our agreement or thought process was that I would help deliver babies and share the on-call for the OB part, but then also be primary care to all these women coming to the OB that might need thyroid help or, hypertension or something like that, OBs weren't super savvy on treating and we didn't have to refer them out. So that was kind of the agreement. And we started there and then quickly realized that a lot of women's health is hormone driven conversations about what to do about hormones. And I really didn't have a whole lot of experience with that. And that was around the time, this was 20 years ago. So we had the Women's Health Initiative that came out and kind of, scared everybody. Hormones are bad. And so I was really stuck between what to do for my patients in terms of helping treat their symptoms. They're miserable, they're frustrated, they're not sleeping, they hate their husband, whatever, hot flashes, they're not, whatever. But yet, we were told these hormones are bad, or, just use the smallest amount possible for the shortest period of time. So then we're counseling these women to come off these hormones that were helping them, and then they're miserable again. And it was just kind of a mess. And I
Yeah.
thought, we don't, I didn't like that. And I didn't feel like we had really good training outside of the reps that brought us samples of whatever hormone replacement that was in the closet at the time. And
Right.
I really felt like I needed more help with that. I happened upon a conference about natural hormone balancing in 2008 and went there. And I felt like that was like Alice in Wonderland, going through this tiny little door of regular medicine into this world of functional or integrative medicine, where we actually test hormones and we evaluate the dysfunction or imbalance. We looked at, that was the first time I really learned about adrenal fatigue, which has been one of my favorite things. That's actually what I'm speaking on this coming week at the conference we'll be at, and learning a little bit deeper about thyroid, not just TSH, higher, low, and synthroid, but really digging in a little bit more into that. So that was kind of my first experience into this world of functional medicine. Then I started dabbling. It seemed like, okay, now we're talking about hormones and adrenals and mood and sleep and all the things that go along with how we feel. And then it turned into, well, we need to evaluate the gut, and then, cardiovascular and brain health. And it
Yeah.
just kind of exploded from there. So
Hmm.
15 years ago, I opened my own practice, Carolina Integrative Medicine, after doing that OB for 4 years. And that practice decided that they wanted to be bought out by the hospital system. And I knew that that was not the direction that I wanted to go in my career. So I bit the bullet, took the cold plunge into owning my own practice. And it has been a roller coaster ride. But, 15 years later, we're still going strong. I think, even more successful. And ultimately, you've got to have a business that's open in order to help people. So I want to be successful in my business, but also, just getting out there and letting people know that there's a different way. And like what you're doing in this podcast is, to me, I feel like if people can't find us and they don't know that we're out here and that we can help them, then we're not doing anybody any service. So the more that we can just help people understand there's doctors like us out here and how we can help you.
Yeah, and you have a choice. And it's hard to have a brick and mortar, and it's a lot of work to be a physician that is outside the hospital. So I commend you with that, cuz I had a brick and mortar for like 10 years, and then when we moved I shut it down, and my adrenal glands are a lot happier now.
Yes.
So I mean, so that's why it's like that's why we're so good at like treating people with adrenal disorders, cuz we have them as
Been there,
doctors.
done that. Yeah.
Yeah, because our training is just horrible. Now, that being said, like, this is why it's so important to get an MD or a DO, because we have all the conventional training. We know those red flags. We have the gestalt. We get it. We can do what your conventional doctor does, but we can also bring in that integrative flair, which is so important. And really just it takes a lot to dissect it all down, really. And like you were saying, that you started in this one world and then it led you to gut health and heart health, and because it's literally all connected. The
Yeah.
specialties that we have in conventional medicine, it's all a joke and nothing really gets done, and it's good for like
They're so
surgery.
disconnected. Yeah, I mean, you have
Yeah,
a acute
but
something, you need a surgeon, or you need,
yes.
a gastroenterologist, to do a colonoscopy or something like that, right? But I mean,
Yeah.
when it comes to actually treating, you know, even acute illness, but chronic illness, that's not super bad leading you into the hospital. I mean, I get, stories from patients all the time where they've seen 13 different doctors for, whatever their ailments are, and we can see how they're
All
all
connected.
interconnected, but they're very, blinded, and they just go, okay, that's not my issue. You need to see somebody else for that.
Yeah. And
Not
it's
really
like,
making a
no,
connection.
it's all connected. Yeah. So it is hard to tell people that, yeah, sometimes you need to drop your insurance model and use that just for emergencies and
Mhm.
surgeries. But if you want whole wellness, you should probably just pay cash like you do
Yeah,
for when you get your car fixed and stuff. I mean, it's like people will pay cash for everything unless it's their health and longevity.
right.
So, I mean, I think that that is important to, first of all, know that there's people out there, know that you're going to a spot that actually has someone know that they're doing, because I'm sure since you've opened 15 years ago, you've had a lot of probably things pop up around you just because it's trendy now and everyone's just looking as a way to get rich quick, but they're not providing good care. Because that's what I just
Yeah.
saw someone, and they've been to like 3 or 4 different wellness clinics, med spas, and they're a mess. And I'm like, "Oh, what just happened?"
Yeah, there's
So
a lot that
that's
just focus on
very
the hormone part, I mean,
yeah.
there's, I still live in a small town, so there's not a lot, but people, go to the big city, of Greenville and, find, where they go get their hormone replacement, but they're not really evaluating, the rest of it. And
Right.
really recognizing in order for your hormones to work appropriately and or to keep you safe, although we're learning a lot more that hormone replacement done the right way has, good safety there, but
Yeah.
still, hormones are metabolized through your liver. So making sure that we're cleaning the liver and using supplements related to that, optimizing weight and not just, jumping on the bandwagon of whatever the fad is for weight loss. I mean, I've been through phentermine and HCG and
Mhm.
B12 shots and now the GLPs and that sort of stuff. And I'm not against those. I just think they need to be integrated into a program that, looks at the whole picture.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's true. Well,
so
you know what I was just thinking about? It's so funny because I always have this conversation with people. Don't you love it when like clothes that were like cool when we were in high school like come back in style?
yeah,
We'll see this with like medicine. Things will like cycle through and it's like, well,
yeah,
if you just like kept your clothes, like I keep my clothes from a decade ago in my barn and then
yeah,
they're back in style and people are like, "Where'd you get that?" I'm like, "High school, I don't know." But anyway, I was just thinking about it cuz I like clothes and fashion and I'm just
yeah,
like I tell my daughter, well, it's funny. She always critiques my outfits. So, you'll see cuz we're getting ready for A4M, so Amy and I are both speaking there and I like to wear like fun outfits when I go to these
yeah.
conferences because I'm collecting
I
like
was very colorful, like the big fluffy skirts
yeah.
and stuff like
Oh
that.
yes. Oh, they're lined up. I have like a Christmas theme fluffy skirt. Anyway, so but okay, so Dr. Duffy, why women's health though? So we kind of like you saw that there was like a hole in these poor perimenopause and menopausal women that this void that was not they were not feeling good and getting taken care of. So
Yeah.
how do you help these women?
Well,
Mhm.
I can remember specifically a couple patients in that OBGYN office where, really we were using prescriptive medications, like instead of treating hormones or adrenal dysfunction or whatever, like we're digging into using antidepressants, sleeping aids, that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
you get this like I need something to wake me up in the morning and then I need something to help me go to sleep at night. And it's so, just counterintuitive and dysfunctional. And the first few patients that I actually tested cortisol and saw low and actually treated that. And, they came back and like, this, I feel better. Like I don't, we're not just band-aiding the symptom, it's like we're actually doing something. And, again, over the course of 15 years of getting patients through this, I mean, we have patients who have quit their job because they're completely dysfunctional. They're forced into early retirement. They can't function, in high level thinking like law enforcement and stuff like that, where they just can't keep up. And I mean, in a current patient I have right now, like she's only been with us about 3 or 4 months and just has had significant improvement in not just how she feels, but in her ability to function, in her life. And so it's life changing. And I was think it's interesting. I mean, I went into this path with, delivering babies and bringing life into the world. And now I feel like I kind of restore life back to, those who have lost it. And
Yeah.
what we do is really, I mean, we got to evaluate, we call it the pillars of health. You might have heard about that, multiple, different pillars that people use, but we've got to look at the gut. We've got to look at nutrition, got to balance hormones. And that includes adrenal function and thyroid, as well as just your what we call your sex hormones. And then we look at just, at the cellular level, is there inflammation? Are we deficient in nutritional things like your vitamins or, CoQ10, omegas, things like that. So we really dig deep. I mean, our programs are individualized for each patient, but you see patterns. I mean, everybody, we look at the same thing for most part with everybody. We might add on some special testing depending on what their history is or severity of their symptoms, but ultimately if we can really look at the focus of those pillars and how they interact with each other. I mean, I love how like thyroid and hormones interact with each other and how there's a gut brain connection and how important it is when we heal the gut, we can really see patients anxiety improve.
Yeah.
And nobody looks at that. I mean, they just, oh, you have anxiety. Here's your, Band-Aid that causes side effects, causes addiction. You probably but shouldn't be driving if you're taking those medications. How can you really function in your world? And, and or a medicine that you try, but it doesn't really effectively help you, or you just don't feel anything anymore, which is, the case of a lot of antidepressant, anti-anxiety medications is they just kind of numb, the edges of your moods, and so you don't feel anything, and then that's not really the way anybody wants to live their life. So
Yeah.
many examples of multiple different ways that we can help support people, whether it's a young person. I mean, our focus is mostly on women that are 40 to 60, although their men often come in. We got a new patient yesterday, or not, last week, whatever day it was, who's the husband of this lady I was telling you about that
Mhm.
quit her job. He saw the improvement she had, and he's over here with chronic pain and issues that he needs to deal with. So we get men.
Yeah.
We do the same thing. We have young patients, a lot of them dealing with gut issues and kind of mood, anxiety, stress, that type stuff. So
Yeah. Wait, so you're telling me you can't just go to a med spa and get some pellets and get some GLP-1s and that's it? I'm just being
yeah, I
sarcastic
mean,
because
no, I get it.
literally
That's
this
what I'm
is
saying.
like this is the
You can do
fad
stuff
right
like
now.
that, but those are,
It drives us crazy. This is
I don't
like
wanna say that they're Band-Aids. I mean, they, to some degree they are, but
they
they're
absolutely
okay,
are.
but at the same time, they're not, you're really not looking at the big picture. And for
Yeah,
a lot of patients, it may help one part of things, but, what's the long-term plan for that, you know?
right.
Um, and
Yeah.
again, I'm not opposed to those things, but I don't love pellets, and a lot of patients wanna know why, why don't I do pellets? And, I know they're taught by a lot of the conferences and programs that we go to and teach at,
It's a red flag.
teach pellets.
Yeah.
In my world, I think that we need to be not only what we call bioidentical, which means that the chemical structure that we're using is the same exact chemical structure of the hormones that are supposed to be in your body or that your body used to make. So pellets are technically bioidentical when you come to that definition, but they're not physiologically identical. And so, nowhere in our life except when we were pregnant did we have hormones that did this.
Mhm.
So, when somebody gets a pellet, they get, upwards of 200 times the amount of estrogen that you would make on a daily basis put into your body at one time. And there's some theory that it sort of slowly releases, but really it doesn't. It just gets your level really high, and then it takes 3 to 4 months for it to go away.
Terrifying.
And people feel good.
Of
Um,
course. Yes.
Usually the first 2 or 3 pellets, they're like, oh my God, this is life changing. And then about a year later, they'll go, they're not as effective as they used to be. And so we can, what we call, oversaturate the receptor. So just like
Yeah.
if you watered your lawn every day over and over again, you would start to get flooded. And then, you're not effectively doing what you need to do for your lawn and even can cause some damage. So I
Yeah.
don't want to say, that's just my opinion on hormones. And I have lots of friends and colleagues who use pellets, and we agree to not talk about it basically. So, you
It's
know,
like politics. It's like, we're just not gonna talk about this. You're wrong, I'm right. We're not gonna talk
um, everybody has different ways, and I'm not opposed to that. It's just not the way that I like to do it.
Yeah.
Occasionally, I'll have a patient who, is getting pellets elsewhere, and they come to me, and we'll dabble, we'll try different things, and I feel like as long as I can optimize everything else, and they feel their best when they're on pellets, and once we optimize things, sometimes we'll do trial and error of moving to some other way, and they may go back to that, and that's okay. I mean, as long as I feel like we can measure and we're doing the best we can to make sure those hormones are filtered, then I'm not going to kick them out. At least I feel like I'm doing better than what that practice might do without looking at anything else. So
Yeah, it's tough though. I have some mentors that will not take patients that were on pellets because it's a liability concern because
yeah,
they might be creating cancer or whatnot, you
yeah,
know? So yeah, it's tough. But for the combination now that we're seeing at all these wellness things popping up, these med spas, is high dose pellets and high dose GLP-1. So they're
mhm,
losing muscle, they're getting skinny, but then once you hit perimenopause and longer, it's harder to gain that muscle back, which is our metabolic like fuel
right,
and helps with our GLUT4. And so then they're on these, like you said, exactly. This is what everyone says, a couple months, 3 months, they feel high, they feel great. Their
right,
testosterone is like higher than like, bodybuilder levels. And then they crash and they feel like
yeah.
poop. And then it's like you have to like wean them down from it. It's
Yeah.
awful. I mean,
Well, then
low
they
and
have like a whole
slow.
month. I mean, they can start to
Yeah.
feel, it's like, okay, I have the calendar, since
Yeah.
when do we need to treat medicine by calendar, right? So, I mean, it's like my next appointment is scheduled here. They start to feel, the lack of hormones about,
Yes.
somewhere 2, 3 weeks before their appointment. Their spouses know, are starting to ask, like, hey, when's your next pellet appointment? Like,
Mm.
can you move it
Like
up early?
crash.
That kind of stuff. So it's obvious, not just to them, but to their family members. how they feel. And then by the time they get their pellets, they don't work immediately. So it takes another like 2 weeks for that to kind of get regulated. And so, I mean, every 3 months, they're basically going through menopause for a 4 week period of time. And it's just this roller coaster ride. And
Yeah.
just doesn't seem long term, supportive. And, what's the long term plan? I mean, we're just going to do that for a couple years, or like, is this forever in the rest of your life?
Yeah.
It's hard.
It's tough. And I think what we do, and we're pretty similar, is that we want to create patients, long term to feel better. So eventually they won't need us. Now that differs a little when you look at perimenopause and menopause, because you are helping them through this like process, and
Right.
they're all and then move into longevity. But the goal is to not have them so codependent on you or have more and more problems creep up,
Right.
and this is when what we see with conventional medicine, or if you're dosing hormones wrong, that they are almost.
Well, and really what I want is to get our patients from wherever their baseline is to optimal. And like you said, even get it
Mhm,
to longevity. And then our job is just maintenance, right? Like it's not a
mhm.
whole lot of work. It's just let's check in once a year, make sure we're in the right place. You know, if anything changes, obviously we're there, but that's the easiest patient
Yeah.
is to, once we get them into maintenance, and then they're just on cruise control and it's really easy. So,
And then you could talk about their kids and like life, yeah. And but things do creep up, and we live in a toxic world. So sometimes there are things or emotional hurdles that then you do need someone that knows alternative ways to get through
right.
that, and how to use supplements and peptides properly. So let's dive into adrenals a little bit, and adrenal glands, and why I know, because you love it, and this is just, you can fix the hormones and have them look perfect, but if you're not fixing the adrenal glands, they're not they're still not gonna be optimal,
Yeah.
and we see this. So why is adrenal health, like, why should we even talk about it?
Well, I mean, number one, our body's job is to stay alive, and really that comes from the adrenals, right? So, if you're getting chased by a lion or a saber-toothed tiger or whatever, like, your body's response is to generate adrenaline, or, what we might consider cortisol. And so, what happens is that we're not, getting chased by lions on a regular basis, like may have happened in the caveman days. I don't know. I didn't live there, but what we're being chased by is busy life, the clock, you know, traffic, computer stimulation. Now, we've got our phones that oftentimes people are going to bed and waking up with their phones. And so even that light stimulation sort of sends a signal to your brain, hey, we're not ready to settle down yet. We're not calming down. And so normally adrenals are supposed to produce cortisol high in the morning. That's what wakes you up when the sun comes up, and then it goes down at nighttime. And that transition stimulates melatonin, and then we sleep. And so when we start to see people with abnormalities in cortisol, we often will see fatigue as a symptom. We'll see sleep issues. We call them tired and wired. So you're exhausted all day long, but then when it is time to go to sleep at night, brain can't quite turn off. Um, Craving, people, when we're talking about weight issues, there are GLPs and things that we can use to band aid, but if you're not optimizing sort of the foundation, those aren't going to be as effective, or they're not. You might have to use higher doses or be frustrated you're spending all this money and you're not seeing the effect because um, if your cortisol is really low, and I think it's misunderstood sometimes because a lot of articles or things that talk about cortisol in the world talk about high cortisol. And, high cortisol causes weight gain and fat storage and stress and all this kind of stuff. And absolutely it does. But in my world, what I see most often is that your adrenal glands have been asked to sprint the marathon of life uphill for so long that they produced a lot of high cortisol initially, and now they're sort of worn out. And so what we often see is low cortisol levels, or the term is adrenal fatigue, or we can get really fancy and call it HPA axis dysfunction, but patients don't know what that is. So we have to explain a little bit. But I tend to see more patients with low cortisol than I do with high, but I do saliva testing to look at that. And so, when cortisol levels are high, I think about that as kind of hibernating, right? So if we go back to caveman days, like, your body's job is to protect you and keep you alive. And so if it's concerned that maybe we're not going to be able to produce the appropriate amount of adrenaline if we go out of our cave, so we should stay in our cave, which means let's hibernate, let's stay inside, let's not go out there into the world that can be stressful and overwhelming. So we'll start to see people say, I'm exhausted all the time. I'm not sleeping. I'm gaining weight, or, even though I don't eat anything, but your body's kind of like in store mode, it's in hibernation mode. I don't want to go out there and do fun things anymore. So I used to love shopping. I used to being social with my family. And now it's like, I don't feel like doing anything, but it's not quite depression. They're not depressed. They're just tired. And going out there into the world, creates this sense of overwhelm. And what I often see in how this connects to hormones is that the adrenal in somebody who's pre-menopause, which means that you're before age 50, basically, you're still having cycles. When the adrenals go down, there's a direct correlation with progesterone. So we'll start to see early reduction in progesterone. So patients who are, maybe late 30s or early 40s starting to have night sweats, they're starting to have irregular periods. They're going, I'm too young to be menopausal. What is this about? And I think that that's a direct correlation to adrenal dysfunction causing the hormonal imbalance.
Yeah.
Then on the flip side, people may just be skirting along and doing okay. And then menopause hits, hormones go down, and then that affects their adrenals as well. So they really are connected to each other. They're affected by each other. And there's this outside world of stress we talk about, but then we go deep into the internal stressors of this is where the gut plays a big role in this, because if your gut's not happy, nobody's happy. And, whether it's food, whether it's what we call dysbiosis, which is just either not enough good bacteria or bad things like yeast or bacteria or whatever that might be growing in there. Those are internal stressors that every day is creating that same sort of response. Your brain doesn't know whether it's being chased by a lion or you ate something that's causing, your body to have to respond from an immune system perspective. And so that wears your system out too. I mean, it just is this, I guess, vicious cycle, although I don't think it's vicious because we can address it in multiple ways. So we've got to reduce external stress as much as we can. I can't take your job away. I can't take your kids away or your financial stressors, whatever, but can we support your brain so that it doesn't realize, you're not being chased by a lion, you're okay. So there's things that we can do out there. Can we help on the internal stress side? And then if needed, we may support your adrenals through supplements or, even cortisol replacement if it comes to that. So, it's really fun because people get better right away when we address adrenal stuff. I mean, we see results so quickly. It's really fun. And I think it's fun for me just because nobody's ever heard of it. And so it's kind of a new thing. I mean, very under addressed in traditional medicine. I mean, I think one time I learned about Addison's disease, which is a really rare, sort of thing that only endocrinologists know how to deal with, maybe.
Right.
And so, it was never taught for me in any kind of, either med school or residency in terms of really looking at adrenal dysfunction.
Yeah. Yeah, and so much can put us in this fight or flight stress all the time, and that is where it is taking the toll because we're supposed to be in rest and digest in the parasympathetic, resting with that.
Yeah.
And we're not, and it seems like we just keep on piling on more and more stressors. And there's another event at the kid's school, or mother's homeschooling can even be overloaded, or you're running, in the car. Like for me, we're driving a lot more in Tennessee, and that your nervous system is on alert, right? You need to be alert to
You're
drive.
paying attention the whole time.
So I've really had to manage with that and do more breath work, or I spend time with my cows now. My
Yes.
heifer is finally eating out of my hand, so that was great. So I just that this is all stuff that we need to do. We need to do things to put us in that parasympathetic state because we're constantly bombarded. So for me, like using me as an example, I had to adjust. I'm driving more, that's stressful on my body. So I need to make sure I'm doing other restorative things. So it's a balance with my adrenal glands and my health, because that
Yeah.
will affect my hormones. And when you're in midlife, that will translate to crazy menopause symptoms or perimenopause symptoms. So, yeah, so the adrenal glands really are key. And like you said, if you go to a conventional medicine office, what will they do? They'll rule out for Addison's and Cushing's. That's about it. And this is
Maybe, but you have to have pretty significant symptoms that would even
that's true.
warrant a cortisol test in the first
Yeah.
place, right?
But they don't even test cortisol correctly. They
No.
do a blood test in the morning where you've already driven there. You've
Agreed.
already, you might be freaked out about getting your blood drawn. So that is not going to be a first morning cortisol where we actually know what's going on. So
Right.
this is can you talk a little bit more about the 4-point saliva cortisol
Yeah, for
test?
sure.
Yeah.
So just like you're describing, I mean, like I said earlier, our goal, is to have cortisol peak in the morning and then, smoothly go down throughout the day. We have kind of this nice gentle curve. And, like you said, I mean, when we get to the point where the adrenals sort of get tired and maybe, just to give you a number example, like a normal cortisol first thing in the morning would be 20. And so maybe you're floating at 10 or 11 or, something even lower than that. But if you go get your blood work done, like you said, we get this little bit of stress. We got to get kids out the door or whatever to get to this fasting blood test. And then you get a needle stuck in your arm and you're worried about, getting to work on time or whatever. And so that could actually stimulate you to be in the normal zone when your early morning awakening might have been lower. And so then you would screen for that and it would be normal. And then you'd be like, that's not your issue. So
Right.
when you do a saliva test, you're at home, you're putting saliva or spit into a little tube about 30 minutes after you wake up. So, we're generally trying to get what normal day would look like for you. And then even more important is that we get your first morning cortisol, but then we want to see what it looks like the rest of the day. I have a lot of patients where morning is still, sort of hanging on. So we'll have a okay, 14, 15 in the morning, but then by noon they're like at bedtime. So it's
Yeah.
like the body does this, initial sprint to get you up and out the door and get you going. And then we used all the cortisol that we have for the whole day, between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. or noon, whatever time it is. And then we don't see any the rest of the day. Or you can get this crazy kick up at nighttime. So particularly somebody who's struggling with sleep, again, that tired and wired, I'm exhausted all day. But then when it's time to go to bed at night, now it's like I kick it in, I get this second wind. I'm doing laundry at, 11 o'clock at night or working on my computer or whatever, because that's, my brain's focused and wants to work. And so we can see, sort of this different shapes of cortisol curve. And then our treatment for that is going to be different. So, I mean, you could just read an article that goes, oh, I match the symptoms of adrenal. I'm going to go take this adrenal supplement. And, I mean, most of them aren't super harmful necessarily, but they may not be doing the right thing for you. So, do you
Exactly.
need something that stimulates your adrenals or do we need something that calms them down at night? I mean, it's all very different. And
Mhm.
so really looking at that test and understanding the 4-point cortisol, looking at your own individual curve to help us, drive what is our treatment approach going to be. And
Yeah.
then even then, again, somebody sprinting the marathon of life, you can give them Gatorade all day long, but at some point they gotta stop sprinting. They need to stop running. They need to lower the slope of this hill that you're trying to sprint up. So, there's multiple factors involved in supporting and in treating the adrenals.
Yeah, and tests don't guess, but also the appropriate test. Like you were saying, someone could come to you and they're like, I don't feel any energy in the morning. And you're thinking, okay, like we're gonna test and not guess, but I bet you they don't have a good response in the morning. But they come to you and they're like, oh, but I got a cortisol blood test from my conventional doctor and insurance paid for it. And oh, it showed it's fine.
Normal.
And I'm like, yeah, but that's not actually like the correct test. We need a 4-point saliva cortisol test.
Right.
So I think asking for that, and you're gonna ask that if you go into your regular doctor and they're just gonna stare at you. So so go to someone who actually knows what it is and how to order it, because then you can get a repeat test in 3 to 6 months and see if the things that you are doing are helping or not, or if you have to dig deeper and maybe it's something with your sleep or maybe it's something else. And that's what's so good about having these personalized tests to, it's good to see it on paper
I
for
agree
people.
100%. I mean, I guess, you're taught to rule out something major like, thyroid disorder or anemia, but oftentimes those labs are going to be normal. And so then it goes what I call subjective, right? We're just treating a symptom and we're not really looking. And so, that same person may be treated with, an antidepressant, or they might be given something like Adderall, to help give them energy during the day, and then, a sleeping pill at night, or they're given some sort of
Yeah.
anti-anxiety or whatever.
All
And
the
then it
time.
goes by how do you
All the
feel,
time. Yeah.
or you get into the hormone related symptoms. So you're having night sweats or irregular periods. And I will tell you, being in the OBGYN world, if you're not menopausal, then your treatment is birth control pills,
Right.
you know,
Oh, yeah.
for
Yeah,
everything.
yeah,
Like, there's
well,
no test. It's just, let's just put you on this. Maybe it'll reset your
yes.
system, or it'll just regulate your cycles and you'll be fine, right?
Well, what's the cookie cutter? What do they do for
Yeah.
perimenopausal midwife women? Birth control and antidepressants.
Yep.
Literally, that's it. Like, how many people have come to you and that's what they're on, and you're just like,
Or, by the time they get to me, they've tried it and they didn't like it. It caused some,
"Straight." And they're
adverse
like,
effect or something like that. They
they
may
know better.
sometimes
That's
they're
why they're
still on
telling
it,
you.
but they come to me on it or having tried it, but yet not getting relief of the symptoms,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
and then they're frustrated.
Yeah.
And
Well, and the gaslighting. I mean, but I actually will have a lot of women that come to me and they're like, this is what they told me. This is why I'm with you, because I'm not going on birth control and an antidepressant. I know that's not the problem.
yeah,
So I think women have gotten a lot smarter too about this. So, I mean, how do you have women advocate for themselves? Like if they're in this healthcare system that dismisses their concerns, other
yeah.
than seeing someone like you or me, what would you say to them?
Well, I mean, that's the initial thing I think is the beauty of where we are now with podcasts like this, and I think the information is out there more. I mean, hopefully we can trust that there's information that's correct, right? So, I can't guarantee if you're Googling that you're going to get, everything that you need. However, I think the conversations are becoming more common. I mean, I started this 20 years ago and nobody knew anything about adrenal dysfunction and bioidentical hormones way back then, um, except for the people who taught me how to do it. So, it's becoming, I don't want to say mainstream yet, but it's becoming more and more popular. Like this conference we're going to this weekend started with, some 300, 400 people, which is still a pretty good big conference, to record 7,000 or something, attendees last year. So, I mean, to me, that's a sign that, this type of medicine is growing. And so my hope is that the information is out there so people can get a little bit more awareness that there's a different way of doing things, whether you can search bioidentical hormones or natural hormones or, adrenal dysfunction and get some, help from that perspective. But that's why I love doing this kind of thing is, yes, if you're in South Carolina, come see me. But if you're in, I don't know, Chicago or California, like it's not convenient for you to pop over here, but can you have some keywords of saliva testing, of adrenal dysfunction, of, perimenopause, that kind of stuff that you could search and find a practitioner that is talking like we are, right? And so that's my hope, is that people are starting to realize that there's a different way, that they don't have to just go by what traditional medicine is. And like you mentioned earlier, I think people really need to realize that this is out of the box. I mean, there's evidence, to everything that we're doing, but it's not mainstream. So it's not conventional. It's not insurance covered medicine. So you need to realize that if you want the help in the way that we do things, that you're going to probably not use your insurance for the majority of it or any of it. We don't deal with insurance at all in my practice. It's just become such a headache. And I
Yeah.
want people to focus on their health and what they can do and not focus on, can I get reimbursed $38 for, whatever lab test we might have done. So
Exactly. It's an investment in your health. Pay now or pay later.
absolutely. Yeah.
So, I'd love to wrap up. It's been such a great conversation, but I want to ask you some lightning round questions. You
Okay.
ready?
Yep.
Okay. What career would you have chosen if not medicine?
That's a tough one because, like, I was going to be a midwife, right? Or I was going to be a pediatrician. I don't know, maybe teaching, but
Yeah, that's what
I
you
don't know
said.
now, if I would
Yeah.
look back on that I would really enjoy that. But
Well, you are
interestingly, I'm
teaching.
fascinated by stuff like, I would like to be a waitress sometimes. I just think
Oh,
that
yeah.
that's fun.
Oh, I was a server like
Yeah.
high school through undergrad, and I for my ER residency, my application, I put how working in the ER is like working as a
Yeah.
server, because you're like going to room because it really is. It's that like high multitasking. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's fun. What is your favorite habit that rescues a tough day?
Hot tub. I have a hot tub and it is like my happy place. I get in my hot tub every night.
Nice.
Um, my people in my house know, like, that's my time, I mean, they kind of leave me alone. They know mom's in the hot tub, that's her time.
Aw.
Um, that's what's probably the hardest when I travel, is that I don't
Mm.
even if you get a hotel bathtub, unless you really are in this, you know, fancy place that's unusual
Yeah,
to have a
and
nice big bathtub.
hotel hot tubs, like, gross.
Oh,
Like, my
no. Yeah.
husband, like, he
That's what I'm
goes
saying.
in
Like,
them, and I'm like,
not the public one. I'm just talking about in
"Ew."
your room, taking a bath.
Yes. Yeah, like a jacuzzi
Um,
tub. Even that might
I
be
have a
s
hard time if I don't get my nighttime water fix.
Aw, that's nice, that's nice. What is one wellness rule that you'll break sometimes?
Um, Food, I would say food probably is, I always teach people, look at this food and go, is this something that's going to fuel my body or is it going to cause more stress?
Yeah.
And, life gets busy. I've got a 10th grader that's in basketball right now. So we have, often 3 nights a week that we're traveling somewhere for a basketball game. So,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
fast food will get, rear its ugly head every once in a while. French
Yeah.
fries and margaritas are you know, I don't
Well,
care about the sweets. I want the salty stuff, which is a testament to my
adrenals.
adrenal function,
Yeah, I
um,
love it. I love it.
especially in the evening time. It's like, "Oh, where's my salt?" So,
Yeah. Yeah, I love it.
that'll be a
Uh,
habit I break
yeah.
sometimes.
Last one, and it's one word only. What word would you like our listeners to carry through with them throughout the week?
Hope, that, just know that have hope, that there are answers out there.
Mhm.
Um, just like we've had this conversation, I get new patients that come in all the time. I had a talk with somebody at a Christmas party yesterday evening where they were expressing some stress about a family member, and I was like, "Well, this is what we do, and, if they want, they can give us a call and we can talk through how we might be able to help them." And they're like, "Oh my god, your one 5-minute conversation has given us so much hope compared to,
Mm.
what we've been out there." So,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, just helping people understand there's a different way that's still driven by medicine, right? Just like you said, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm still an MD, I'm still doing normal, well, not normal to most people, but we're still doing medicine, right? So we're not going into this
Right.
whatever might feel woohoo. So
Yeah, we're not.
I love
We
woohoo
really
stuff.
are
We
doing good
we
things and having
incorporate
good
energy
results.
medicine and
Yeah.
supplements and, like you said, mindset, massage therapy, chiropractor, all that stuff is all helpful. And I
Mhm.
think you probably need a little bit of that, but
Yeah.
my hope is that I give people some hope that, if they're listening, that they can realize that there's a different way and they don't have to suffer.
Absolutely. Love it. Well, thanks for all you do. And can you please share where they can find listeners that are around you? I'm sure we have
Yeah.
North Carolina folks listening where they can find your office and your book.
Yep. We are Carolina Integrative Medicine. It's in Clemson, South Carolina, but licensed in South Carolina, North Carolina, and
South
Georgia.
Carolina. Sorry. Why did I think you
Where
were North?
it's both.
I don't know.
Um, so carolinaintegrativemedicine.com is our website. My book is called Normal Doesn't Have Side Effects. You can find it on Amazon. And I have a separate website, amieduffymd.com, and it's got, lots of podcasts and information there. My book is also linked there as well. And I'd be happy to share with you when you post this. We have a little free mini course. So, if people want to learn a little bit more about some different things, we got a little course that has some videos and stuff in it. So I'll shoot that
Love
to
it.
you.
We will have that in the show notes. Thank you so much and like advocating for women. And I loved our conversation.
Enjoyed it. We'll see you soon.